Hello and welcome back to my small little library. Today we're going to talk about the reading in April. April was a shitty month. Just life-wise, someone really close to me got really sick and I felt like I spent most of the month in like this haze. And on the other hand, it was the month I did the most outside of my own home, which has been a struggle for me. So, I had really highlights and like really low lights this month, and I can barely remember what I read, I'm gonna be honest. So these reviews will probably be a little bit less great than they are normally, and I'm normally not even the best at reviewing things. So I hope you're fine with that. I'm trying to remember as much as I can, but yeah, I'm still in the haze. It's gonna be a while since the person is good again, because they are getting better. Like, it is something that is curable, thankfully, but it's gonna take a while. So I'm hoping you can bear with me for the foreseeable future when it comes to this. Let's just dive in straight away. I finished my last two James Patterson books. I didn't like them. This one got 2 stars. This is the 10th book in the Alex Cross series, and in this one we get back to like this evil overlord that we had in another of the Alex Cross series. So we're going back to him. I hated the scenario back then. I still hated it in this one. It's called London Bridges. I forgot to tell you. Yeah, I'm not interested in talking about it, to be honest. I would not recommend anybody read the James Patterson books. And then the other one that I read was Seventh Heaven, which is the Woman's Murder Book Club series by James Patterson. Slightly better than the Alex Cross series in my mind. Still not a great read. I gave it 3 stars because whilst the plot is solid in most of his books, at least as solid as it gets in like this average thriller, the characters just aren't it, to be honest. In Alex Cross is worse, but even in these books I just cannot get around with the characters. This one we have a boy that vanishes who is like well known, and he has a heart disease, and the pressure on our detective is like really great, and the story goes from there. I just don't think James Patterson's are great books, but those are the last 2 I ever have to read. Well, I have one that he wrote with another person, but maybe that is better. But yeah, those 2 are the last ones I will ever read of James Patterson. I am done with it, and I'm really happy that I'm done with it, and I don't have to look at them anymore. Till they are still on my shelves, but they are the first books that will get donated once I start donating books around this room. Then next up we have a book I really enjoyed, and that was my new to me author and new release book that I bought, and that is The Iron Garden Sutra by A.D. Sui. This is a sci-fi, but it is a really special sci-fi in my opinion, because it feels more like a sort of philosophical book rather than your typical space opera journey through the stars sci-fi. We have our main character here who is a vessel. He is a monk who helps the dead. Like, he does the burial rites pretty much for all people in the universe. That is what the monks are doing. And he gets sent to this generation ship that has popped back up thousands of years after it started. Humanity has gone to the stars in the meantime, and all of the generational ships that have popped back up have all been deserted completely. And so he is sent to the ship to do the burial rites for all of the dead people on the ship, and there he meets some university professors and some engineers who are also sent to the ship to kind of, get the spoils. And then things start going wrong on the ship, and our main character has a whole lot of struggles with being a vessel, with what that entails, what he thinks about what he's doing, what the pressures from other people are. Then he had like something really bad happen to him that has him physically affected, and his relationship with like other people because of that, and what he wears because of that. Like, it's a really complex matter when it comes to that, and it was really interesting to have this slight horror element drive a philosophical discussion about your life, what you're doing with your life, why people end up hurting each other, and it was really, really interesting, so I gave it 4 stars. There's a romance just at the end that I found a little bit weird, but I guess it was to give the main character something nice in the end. I don't really know. That is the main reason I gave it 4 stars. Other than that, this was just an incredibly interesting take on a sci-fi, which is why I would recommend this to everybody, because that was just really delightful and really different to what I've read otherwise. And this is, I think, the book that has stayed the best in my mind throughout the month. Yeah, then we have the first romance, which is Something Cryptid This Way Come, which is by Susan Scott Shelley. And that is part of the Love in Maplewood series. I read one and DNF'd 2 other ones, but then I found this one and I like cryptids. I love watching like documentaries or mockumentaries about Bigfoot and stuff like that. I love that. And this is about 2 guys who were, like, they are best friends, but one has now a cryptid podcast and lives in a different city, and the other one owns the inn in Maplewood. And the aunt of the one who has the podcast keeps meddling because she wants them to end up together. Both are in their 40s now, and she thinks they're perfect for each other. One thinks he's straight, the other one is gay, openly, and all of Maplewood kind of meddles to get the 2 together, and it was really sweet. I gave it 4 stars. I like the setting. I think doing like a cryptid hunt and a cryptid festival to get those 2 together worked kind of well, and it's kind of cute, you know? So yeah, really enjoyed that one. Then I read Enzo, which is Red Cast #1 by R.J. Scott. That is a dark romance, at least in my opinion. It's about Enzo, who works at Red Cars, which is like a car shop for people who need a second chance in life, who have been incarcerated, for example, and they want to lead different lives. They live in this really bad part in town, where you as a child don't really have a great chance, and Enzo has his second chance as Red Cars. And then one evening he opens the door to the back alley and he finds a nearly dead man there, and he makes it his mission to get him back to life, find out what happened, and get revenge for him. And they fall in love throughout the story. The other man has some incredibly horrible things happen to him, which yeah, there are a lot of trigger warnings for that book. A lot of abuse and in everything you can imagine. And yeah, it's a really slow burn, because the second main character, who has had the abuse happen to him, he needs a long time to even talk normally to a human being. So it is really slow, and it was really sad, but I did really like it. So I gave it 4 stars. It was a really interesting read, and yeah, I cried a lot. It was really sad. Then I read the first 4 books in the Hellhounds of Paradise Falls series, and I DNF'd the 5th one. And they are all by Shannon May. And they are about a group of hellhounds who live in this small supernatural town. Like, the town has supernaturals and humans mixed, but there are way more supernaturals there than in any other part of America. And I think it's America it plays out in. And the first one is our main character is a mystery crime writer. And he lives next to one of the hellhounds, the first one who actually comes to the city. And he keeps asking his neighbors for ideas for his novel, and the hellhound, whose job it is to torture the bad souls and get information out of them and, you know, make sure they suffer a little bit before they die, keeps experimenting his ideas on people he has to kill, and it's a really funny dynamic. It's a really funny one, the first one. So I gave that 4 stars. I really enjoyed that one. Then we have the second one, which is but the first one is called How to Flirt with a Hellhound. The second one is then How to Hack a Hellhound, which is the second hellhound that comes to the city, who is a hacker. And he falls for a guy that gets rescued in the first book by the first hellhound, because obviously they go after bad people, and sometimes they rescue victims, from the bad people. And so they bring them into the city and give them to an angel who keeps kind of like, who looks after them, kind of like lost human puppies. And so in the second one, our hacker here, Hellhound, falls for one of the guys that they rescued in the first one. Then we have the third one, which is How to Tame a Hellhound, which is another guy they rescued in the first one who falls for the feral hellhound, who keeps most of his time in his hellhound form and doesn't really... He isn't a human often, and at first the guy thinks it's just a guard dog. It's kind of funny. Like, hellhounds aren't known, like they have to tell the humans that they are hellhound at some point in the story. And then the fourth one is How to Trust a Hellhound, which is an age gap relationship, which I'm not the biggest fan of. All of them got 4 stars. And in that one, we have one of the friends of the writer in the first book and the original hellhound that is the oldest one from the group. And yeah, I liked all of those, and then I came to the 5th book and I couldn't get around that book at all. I didn't like it at all. I don't quite remember why. I just know that I did not like the sexual part, or like the 2 people and how they fell in love. Couldn't get around to that. Then I read another romance, which is called Maximus, which is the first part of the Lords of the Otherworld series by Stella Rainbow. And this one is about otherworldlers who, they aren't demons, but they are souls that help in the otherworld to put souls away where they are going, like to hell or to heaven and stuff like that. And they are like, they are investigating like a bad mage, I think she's a mage, who is trying to do something. They don't quite know what she's trying to do, but they do know that she's doing, like, making trouble for supernatural beings in the normal world. And so Maximus is tasked with looking after his mate, who, like, they are fated mates in like most of the supernatural romances. And his fated mate doesn't even know that he is a sup, and he works in a tattoo shop, and Maximus is kind of stalking him at the beginning of the book. It's a cute book. I gave it 4 stars. I like their relationship. It's not really stalking. He's like kind of just making sure that he doesn't get killed because his uncle got killed, because he was a kitsune, or he was a kitsune, and then our main character also is a kitsune, which is really cute. The next physical read that I read was Psycho by Robert Bloch, which I gave 3.5 stars. It was really interesting because I've never seen the movie. I only knew what I had seen in snippets online, but I found the story to be really interesting, just too short. I would have loved for the story to be way more in detail. It is a rather short book. It's just 170 pages, and whilst that is for me perfect for like a romance, for a mystery or suspense story, I think it's just too short. I would have loved so much more detail. We have so many interesting characters in this book that I just would have loved to know more about. But yeah, if you don't know the story of Psycho, it is about Bates Motel. And our first, well, I have forgotten her name, but we have a woman who steals some money from her employer to pay her boyfriend's debt so they can marry. Her boyfriend doesn't know that she's stolen the money, and so she drives her car, switches cars, and drives to her boyfriend's place. And before she can make it there, she stops at a motel and wants to sleep there, talks with the guy that works there, that owns the motel, and then she gets killed by the mom of the guy who owns the hotel. And then we have a lot of back and forth between the mom and the guy and the sister of our victim. And then we have he's an insurance agent, I think, technically, and the boyfriend, and they all try to find out what happened. And then we have the owners of the motel, who are pretty crazy. And then the story goes from there. But yeah, there are so many great characters in the book. I just would have wished to have more of them. I think it was too little of the story, but it was still a great read, and I would recommend to read it. Also, absolutely love the version of the book that I have. Great secondhand find. After that, I read the second part of the Lords of the Otherworld series, which is called Zane, and I gave that one 4 stars as well. This is about another of the Otherworld Lords, and he actually kills his mate at the end of book 1 because he doesn't realize he is his mate, and he is actually kidnapped by the bad woman of the first one, and he got actually tortured and stuff like that, and he is actually really glad that he got killed at the end of part 1. And so Zane and his mate then can get to know each other in the other world, because his mate obviously chooses to stay in the other world, and they build a relationship from there. It is a lot about trauma and overcoming what happened to him, and then the overarching plot, like progressing with that. And yeah, I really like that as well, so I gave it 4 stars. Then I read 2 books in the Immortal Assassin series, which is Eternal Sin and Forever Midnight. This is about vampires, a group of vampires who live together and fight crime. Technically, they just kill the criminals, and they are hired as assassins by other people, and they find their mates by running around and fighting crime, and it is a lot of fun. And obviously, they all also have a lot of tragic backstories, the vampires and the mates they find. And so yeah, there's a lot of trauma and a lot of like getting to know each other, telling them, you know, I'm an immortal, and getting to the fated mate parts, taking care of the guys. Obviously, all of these are gay romance. I don't know if I mentioned that. But yeah, 4 stars for both of those. Didn't like the third one, stopped reading the series, which is definitely what I do. Then we have Rank Me Forever, which is Polish PMP number 1 by Lila Rose. Also, the Immortal Assassins are by Mia Monroe. Rank Me Forever is about a motorcycle club. We have Luca, who is our main character, who studies medicine, and his brother is in a motorcycle club who own various businesses, for example, a strip club. And he falls in love with one of his brother's mates in the motorcycle club. And yeah, they have a little bit of a weird start, because the guy he falls in love with doesn't know he's gay, which is like a theme that is for a lot of gay romances. But he's really, really jealous really quickly, and he keeps interfering with the other guy getting dates, the guy who studies medicine. And I gave it 3 stars because in the beginning it was slightly uncomfortable, if I'm gonna be honest. But I did like the way their relationship evolves from there. So yeah, I gave it 3 stars. Could have been better, could have been worse. There was still a lot of cute moments, just like, you know, not enough to warrant 4 stars. Then I started another series which is called Drake Security by Mika Nix, and the first book is called Hothead, and it is about dragons who have a security company, and the first guy falls in love with the guy he is supposed to protect, who needs protection from a deranged ex who turns out to be a wolf shifter. And yeah, I like those two, they were really cute together. Then I did read another physical read, and that was Full Dark, No Stars by Stephen King. I finally got around to read another Stephen King. This is a short story collection that is really dark, that is mainly about shitty humans and getting revenge. I really liked this book. I was skeptical because I didn't love the first story, which is called 1922. It is a historical fiction about a guy and his son killing his wife and then getting like hounded for the rest of their lives, which isn't too long. But I loved all of the other ones, even though there should have been a trigger warning for Big Driver, which is the second one, because it starts with an assault on a woman, and yeah, I wasn't prepared for that. But yeah, if you read through the whole collection, you will realize it's just about human depravity and getting revenge and actually getting satisfaction in the end, even though shitty things happened. So I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoyed it in the end. Just the first story wasn't for me, to be honest, but that is just the setting. So if you do like historical fictions, you will probably love all of the stories. Just for me, not the first one. Then we have another romance, who would have thought? And that is Devil's Mark, The Reckless Damned 1. And that is about demons. Because obviously, I really fallen into the supernatural romance hole, I have to say. This is about Cal and Oscar. Cal is a direct son of Lucifer, who has gotten out of hell with his brothers, and he falls for Oscar, who had this shitty ex who he put in prison, and then he meets Cal, and at some point his shitty ex is coming out of prison, and there's a lot of trauma there. Also, Cal owns a bookstore, which, like, could there be a better setting? Definitely not. So yeah, also Cal, they have to do some things because their father tries to drag them back into hell, and they try to not let that happen. And in between all of that, there's a romance between the two, and I really loved that, so I gave it 4 stars. It was really cute. Didn't like the other books in the series. Then I read another bodyguard book, which is called Trusting Kate, Custo's Security's #1, and I was so disappointed in this book. I didn't realize that it had a cliffhanger ending. I don't read books with cliffhanger endings, especially not romances. I hate that. I don't want to end the book in the middle of the story, and yeah, I didn't realize that Trusting Kate had that. This is about Kate and Brandon. Brandon owns a bakery, and he is getting increasingly horrible, like, messages, and that make it clear that he gets stalked. And Kate is the friend of the brother of Brandon's business partner, and they are visiting his business partner, and then they actually get wind of Brandon being, like, more or less blackmailed, kind of, and stalked, and they step in. Kate falls in love with Brandon, and then the ending is pretty shitty in the hospital. Nowhere near a happy ending, and yeah, I hated every second of that once I realized that the book was about to end, and so I gave it 2 stars. It just ruined the whole book for me. Can't do that. I am now way better at looking through the blurbs to see that there is a happy ending and I don't get a cliffhanger. Then I read Chance Encounter by Luna David, which also wrote Trusting Kate, and this is part of the Elite series, which is a series that is written by a lot of different authors. In this one, we have Tate and Chance is the son of the mayor, and is currently in the process of being killed by the mayor. And Tate is there to actually assassinate the mayor because he works for the Elite, who are, like, hired assassins, who are supposed to kill bad people. And he kills the mayor and rescues Chance, and they fall in love from there. Pretty simple. I liked it. It's just your typical I'm gonna take care of you romance, which is something I really enjoy. So I gave it 4 stars. It was great. And then I read another one in the Elite series, which I gave 3 stars, which is called Leave No Trace, and that is about Trace and Cole. And Trace is in searching for an assassin because his neighbor is pretty much more or less abusing his wife and he wants him gone. And he heard about the assassins from a friend, and so he goes there, and he also searches for somebody to fuck him. And yeah, he finds Cole. That is the rest of the story. I gave it 3 stars because it was still sweet, but it was kind of weird at some points, and it was just so laughable, the plot, that I didn't really know what to do with it. So yeah. Cute story, laughable plot. It works out, but it wasn't the best romance I've ever read, you know. Then we are finally at the last 5 books. This is taking forever, I'm sorry. I reread Annihilation to read my special edition, which is this one, which glows in the dark, which, you know, I love it. Yeah, favorite book, still 5 stars. It is a mystery where you get next to no answers about Area X, where nature has returned and strange things are happening, and our main character gets sent in with a group of women, and they are supposed to find out what happened, and instead they find out that they hadn't gotten all of the information beforehand, and it goes from there. And I really love those. They are by Jeff Vandermeer, and yeah, big fan of the Southern Reaches series. Then I read 2 books from the same series, which is called Brandon Boys, and they are called Heat Transfer and Bond Strength by Catherine McIntyre. And those two were really sweet romances. The first one is about, let me look the names up. The first one is about Cor and Felix, who met at sword fighting, and in both their lives other people assume that they are together because they have like a really touchy friendship, but only Felix has feelings for Cor, and Cor doesn't realize that he has feelings for Felix. No, the other way around. Cor is the one who has feelings. Felix actually has a girlfriend at the beginning of the story. I always switch those two around. But yeah, then Felix's girlfriend breaks it off with him, and they start fake dating because everybody assumes they are together, and yeah, they start fake dating, and fake dating brings them to real dating, and it was really cute. And then the Bond Strengths one is about brother of Felix's, Declan and Noah, and they were friends in school, but they drifted apart, and Declan is an autistic guy and he has a hard time interpreting social cues, and Noah is a chronic yes-sayer who has pretty little time for himself because he keeps saying yes to everything, and they, because of the storm, they are forcibly together, and they talk about why they drifted apart, and then both realize that they have feelings for each other that Declan couldn't interpret, and Noah didn't really know how to handle the fact that he would need to spend time with somebody and couldn't keep saying yes to everybody else. And yeah, because of that, they find back together. They decide, you know what, we give this a try. We really want to give this a try. And then they help each other overcome some of the struggles that they have, which was really cute. So 4 stars for both of those books. Then I read Attraction, which is Undisclosed Book 3 by Carly Marie. I gave this one 3 stars, mostly because of the supporting cast. The book is about Dexter and James. Dexter's best friend moves out next door from where he lived to Dexter, and then James moves in. James is a sheriff. Dexter is a physical therapist, and he also works with his best friend. And Dexter makes this his mission to befriend the neighbor, James. Also, he finds him really hot. And throughout the book, James realizes that he's gay and that he really likes Dexter, and then they work through their issues because they are really different. And yeah, but they have, like, their friends have some things that I personally didn't love reading about. I am open to giving them another try, so I am thinking of actually reading the book where his best friend and his partner come in, just to get like a better picture of it. But yeah, it is, they have like the like daddy little kink. I know little about it, and the snippets that we got in this book were just too much for me to enjoy the main story. I felt like they could have been just less. I felt like they took off of the story from our main couple, which was kind of annoying at points, so I gave it 3 stars. But I did really like both of the main characters. Well, it was a little bit annoying. But what can you do, right? So yeah, I might just try to read the first book of the series, and if I like that one more, then maybe I will enjoy actually the rest of the series. But I felt like if I have one couple to focus on, it kind of annoys me when I have too much of another couple in that book as well. And then we have the last book I read in April, which is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Well, technically I only read half the book because I have a misprinted copy, and the book starts again at the halfway point. So I have Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde twice in this book. But the stories that I could read, I did really enjoy. There is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, the pretty classic story that everybody knows, the guy who is split in two. Then we have The Body Snatcher, which was super interesting, about the fact that for a time in history, people were grave robbing and killing people to get bodies to learn medicine. Super interesting story. I really liked that one. And then the last one that I could read was A Lodging for the Night, which I had a hard time understanding. Zach has thankfully explained it a little bit more to me in the comments, which was really great. But yeah, that was a really weird story about a guy who more or less chooses to be a thief, and yeah, he visits some people. There's somebody dying in the story. It was kind of weird and confusing. And yeah, then the book started from the beginning again, and I couldn't read the last two, but I'm still counting it as finished because I did read through it. And I gave 3.5 stars because I didn't really like the story. I didn't understand. I liked Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde as like a 3-star, and I loved The Body Snatcher as like a 4.5 star. So I put it at 3.5 together. Would really recommend. Absolutely, I'm in love with the design of this copy. And yeah, those were all of the books I read in April. Hopefully I remembered all of them. I'm not sure. But yeah, I did do a lot of disassociation through reading romances. That I can tell you. They are a great way to distract yourself from life and from how shitty life is sometimes. So yeah. Also, just another thing, maybe 2 favorites for like the movies this month. I went and watched Project Hail Mary and the new Super Mario Brothers movie. Loved both of them. Absolute recommendation for both. Project Hail Mary, brilliant movie, absolutely brilliant. Was super, super great seeing it in cinema. It is made for cinema. And it was as close as sensible to the book, if you've read the book by Andy Weir, because he actually worked together with Ryan Gosling on the movie. And yeah, it was perfect. I really loved that one. And then Super Mario Brothers, Super Mario Galaxy, I think is what the name is. Brilliant humor. Loved it. The sound design was like the best. Like, it was so great, so nostalgic. And yeah, both of them a big recommendation to watch. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed April's wrap up, even though it was kind of a little bit all over the place. But yeah, hopefully next month we go a little bit smoother. But I have the feeling that I'm not going to read less anytime soon because I need the distraction of the romance books, because I've realized I love a good sappy romance. And yeah, I'm gonna lean all into that. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.